So we're seeing continuation of the pullback, which we discussed on Thursday and Friday, playing out pretty similar to what we said was likely to happen. In today's show, we'll go over some of the high time frames, looking at the stock market, the monthly closes, where we're likely to go next over the course of June, July, and August. Smash the like button, hit the bell notification, and subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. This is the monthly chart, the monthly overview for the top 100 cryptos, and you can see on a monthly scale, at least half of the coins are up over here. And if we do the same exercise on the stock market, well, the majority of the stocks are also up on a monthly scale. But the hourly, we are starting to at least we've been putting in a bit of a pullback over the last couple of hours into the early hours of this morning. Are we finding a bottom? We'll discuss this and a whole lot more, right? Let's get into it. First and foremost, who is in charge, the bulls or the bears, when it comes to the stock market? And according to this is bar charts, which looks at historical data and statistically how things are most likely to pan out depending on how the prior months have played out, right? And the bar chart says if our bulls are in charge, S&P 500 just gained 6.15% in May. There's been 6 times in history where the stock market gained at least 5% in May. And generally speaking, over the coming months, you're looking at least 20%, right? Around 20% gain. So that is your stock market overview, right? If you look at the monthly scale, that was a pretty massive candle when you switch this onto the monthly chart, coming pretty picture perfect exactly into that key horizontal. You'll remember that Bitcoin's key horizontal was coming around that 70K level, 68 to 70K over here, and that got a little bit front run, but the stock market tagging that almost perfectly. Now, for any of you that have done whale school, you'll know that I often talk about this, and that is big inefficiencies, right? So that's something you do need to look out for in the short to medium term. If there is any sort of a pullback in the stock market over here, well, you can map out, of course, the 50% mark, of course, 50% of that wick over there, and that lines it up to about 5,200. So we can actually map that off on the chart right now, just in case we see on the monthly scale prices do coming back down there. Then we know that we don't actually need to panic, right? So if we switch on to the daily, that would tell us we don't need to panic. You're probably going to find major support, and I think we can mark this one off over here in yellow, and we'll make it 2 points over there. That's going to be the level. So if you do see prices come down over here in the stock market over the medium time frame, so leading into some point in July, August, etc., understand that that is going to be a major support level, right? That would be testing 50% of the wick on the monthly scale, which is filling the inefficiency and essentially looking for some sort of a bounce out of it. As it currently stands, though, the stock market, it did put in a bit of a pullback, still sitting at about 4.71% away from all-time highs over there. And you can see, as I've shown you on the monthly scale, it does look pretty strong, right? So is this an SR flip? As it currently stands, it looks to be so, with your 200-day moving average rising towards the upside, which will act as additional support over there. So for the time being, that looks good. Why do we look at this? It's a little bit of an indication as to where the risk remains in the market, right? Is a risk on or risk off, right? And generally, if the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ also move towards the upside, that helps for a risk on environment. So NASDAQ also very, very, very close to putting in new all-time highs over there, currently sitting about 4.25% away. So as long as you hold these key levels over here and you can continue to grind up into these resistance zones, you most likely will break out, right? So if you do want to trade these markets, again, in the short term, you could be looking at a pullback towards that little gap. You can see I have a little bit of a gap over here on the S&P 500 around that 5,700, but this is your big SR flip region, right? So you want to see this area hold as a prior resistance now flipped into support level. For anyone that does want to trade this, right? If you do want to trade this, BTCC have an amazing offering over here. They're giving you 10% if you use the specific link in the description below. That means that if you deposit $10,000, they will give you a $1,000 bonus, which is withdrawable, right? You can actually withdraw that money. You can use it. You can withdraw your $10,000, and they're not going to take the $1,000 away from you. So it's easy money for any of you that want that. Crypto, forex pairs, stocks, commodities, they have absolutely everything on here. These are my favorites to trade on BTCC: Apple, Coinbase, gold, Meta, MicroStrategy, NVIDIA, S&P 500, and Tesla, right? Cool. Let me know in the comments if you have any chart requests as well when it comes to stocks. I'll happily pull those up. We're not only doing crypto over here, but moving on to the crypto segment, right? We can see over here, this is now coming into the last month, June being the last month to close off Q2. And so far, Bitcoin has theoretically already hit the average target of what we see typically in a Q2, right? 26.88% return we're sitting on 26.76% return, whereas Ethereum is slightly lagging, with Q2 putting in, on average, 63.82% returns, and we're currently on 36.66, right? Interesting to see that ETH is starting to pull away on a quarterly basis based on what Bitcoin shows. When we look at the monthly for Bitcoin, however, you can see that June, if you nail down specifically to the month of June, it could mean a little bit of sideways price action, maybe even a bit of a pullback, right? And the reason that's important is because that could have implications in terms of what happens with the Bitcoin dominance, which we've never really seen a proper breakdown within this crypto cycle. And that's where I pose the question to you, right? Do you believe there will be an altcoin season in the traditional sense? What is the traditional sense? The traditional sense is where Bitcoin dominance breaks down and pretty much all altcoins go absolutely ballistic, right? You're talking about doubling your money every couple of days. It's absolutely unbelievable. If you haven't been here, you'll see. I don't know if we're going to get that, right? I don't know if we're going to get that, but for those of you that have been here, you know exactly what it's about, right? So far, actually 40% of you don't think we're ever going to see that, right? The other 37% of you are more optimistic, right? You're looking at that happening within 3 months time frame. Now, again, the reason we need to look to these things is because if we do see Bitcoin putting in a pretty neutral June, like we've previously seen, where there's not really any return, it's basically just holding sideways, well, that could lead into continuation of a drop within the Bitcoin dominance and moving into altcoin sector, where we can start to see a spike up. And in actual fact, this has been one of the worst times ever for altcoins, right? If you look at I closed the chart, I wish I brought that up for you, but putting in new lows, if you look at the top 10 altcoin dominance chart, top 10 altcoins dominance is now putting in new 4.5-year lows, which is, of course, pretty bearish, right? If we look at Ethereum over here, well, Ethereum usually puts in a little bit of a pullback in June. May, on average, 31% gains. With this May, we put in 40.84%. So it also may put in a bit of a pause. And then likely, if you get continuation into the rest of the altcoin sector, that'll be looking good, right? So we need to look at a couple more things first to determine that, right? As it currently stands, Bitcoin dominance, this is the highest ever monthly close for Bitcoin USD, which is, of course, a good sign and likely to lead to continuation high to reach our base target of $130,000. Of course, in the short to medium time frame, you could pull back a little bit over there, and that's something we do need to be aware of, because if we look at this chart over here, what are we seeing? Remember, we have triple bearish divergence on the very, very high time frame, which is cycle ending stuff. Remember, that means that price could still theoretically make it all the way to that $130,000 target. But in the very, very, very short term, I'm using what I've now drawn onto here as the orange line. I'll make it a bit bigger for all of you to see. This is, at least in the short term, a little bit of a downsloping trend line on the RSI, which is going to make price struggle to break out until such time as you clear that. So you'd need to see the RSI breach this level. If it can breach this level, you might make it up to the white line. Making it up to the white line is probably going to cause price to move to about $130,000. And that's, again, potential for cycle ending stuff for Bitcoin. That's where you need to look to take serious profits right off the table. How far did Bitcoin get towards that 130K target? It made it within about 15% away, right? So again, I don't think it's time to paste on enormous amounts of risk when it comes to crypto trading and crypto investing. I think now is the time to more position your mindset as a trader, just taking the ebbs and flows, looking for opportunities each and every single day and week, and playing those opportunities to the best of your ability, right? So as it currently stands, we're putting in a little bit of a pullback over there. Again, I don't necessarily think these are death sentences or anything like that. I do think it will just be a little bit of a short-term pullback. You're looking for high lows. I'm going to show you the levels that need to be defended, and then that should build enough momentum to drive price up for the next move up towards that 1.618 fib extension, which again matches up with that rising trend line over there, which is governing price, right? So let's just quickly do a refresher over here on CoinGlass to see the liquidation levels. Right now, very, 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 very low liquidity, right? Over the course of the weekend, very few traders getting wrecked, meaning either the books have already been wiped, everyone got liquidated, or alternatively, no one wants to take a position yet. They're taking a wait and see approach, right? So usually when this happens after big liquidations, which is what we did have, remember we saw the hyperliquid whale, James Wynn, getting liquidated, basically running an account up to $100 million and wiping all 100 million out. All 100 million gone, right? Completely gone over there, which is absolutely unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it. So it probably means the market will remain stagnant, sideways, short-term correction still in play, and then you're looking for volume to eventually pick up, and you can buy that high low. So we had both the long and the short trade on. We had the long stop out in slight profit where we raised our stop loss to break even. And then it was on Thursday that I told you, based on this candle taking out which low, well, we said Sunday. As soon as you take out Sunday's candle over there, that was essentially the sign that you wanted to start to look for short trades over there. And so far, that's playing out, right? So it's up to you if you want to eliminate the risk on this trade as well. You're welcome to do so. I'll probably give it a little bit of room and even be willing to scale a bit more into this position. But the targets would be incremental, right? So this was the first bounce area, which is exactly what you're getting on the pink horizontal over here at 103,000. This is going to be the next and base case level where I'd expect a major bounce just under $100,000. And then if things got really bad, of course, it would be a drop down to about $90,000. I don't think that's extremely likely, right? I'm not betting big on that, but I would say base case still remains within this area over here where you're looking for price to come into that zone. And part of the reason why that's an area of interest is if you look at this as well, from Axel, the Bitcoin support resistance level is situated between $96,900, let's just call it $97,000 and $104,000, right? The main support cluster is located in that region. This is where the key realized price levels of short-term holders converge, right? Which means it's going to be a major psychological testing point. That's where a lot of these short-term traders that started to establish positions more recently are going to be heavily tested in terms of their conviction. And that's where you want the SR flip to hold, right? Which is part of exactly where our profit taking on the short trade would be, and we would be looking to flip short. So, I mean, long again. So if you see something like that, looking to potentially flip long over there, hoping that that does hold as an SR flip, right? Flipping prior resistance back into major support, and that psychological level gets defended. We can see the daily exchange volume is still struggling over here. So this again is also going to oscillate alongside price, just simply consolidating. We need to see that start to tick up. And if you can defend this level over here in the yellow box, and then you can start to bounce out of there, then I would expect that new volume will come in quickly. And then I think that the rise towards that 130K zone would happen very, very quick, right? So in other words, it would look something like this, bit of a consolidation, high, low maybe. And then when you do start to break out and you start to springboard beyond those highs, I do expect that that move is going to happen very, very, very quickly into that 130K region, right? So keep an eye out on that. Now, the big thing that a lot of people are watching, right, is the M2 money supply. As Bill says over here, most of these charts predict that a dip is coming or is happening right now in the days and weeks to come towards $100,000, which is pretty much in alignment with what we're seeing over here into that short-term holder test region, right? Where the psychology gets heavily tested. And then it's going to be a move to new all-time highs of $130,000 in August, September. That was always our base case. We made the base case for years now to a price target between about $120,000 and $130,000 with a more specific time target as a base case happening in September, October 2025, right? So very, very aligned on what they're looking at over here. Most importantly, he says it's clear that global liquidity needs to rise significantly in the coming months in order for Bitcoin to hold up. So if we do look at all the various different charts, you can see Bitcoin lags this M2 money supply, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. That's what we have to be clear about, right? Sometimes this becomes a meme within the crypto cycles. There's cycles where it works and other cycles where it doesn't work, which means you have to use confluent factors and look at a whole bunch of different things to determine directional bias, right? Right now, it is holding true, absolutely, right? And many will say that the M2 money supply, because Bitcoin is lagging, you can see the M2 money supply coming down over there, has, of course, predicted this dip, right? So M2 money supply is about a 12-week lead. So there it is, predicted the dip. And then you see the M2 money supply rising. So is Bitcoin lagging the M2 money supply, right? Only time will tell. Here's another viewpoint, another chart over there. And this is the current dip that we're playing in now. That will take price down again. We're into that key fair value zone, exactly where we're watching, exactly where the 50 and 200 EMA are converging and going to be acting as supportive price pulls back into that, which is something that we outlined when it was happening as a risk factor, right? Alongside the hyperliquid whale. So far, it has all panned out, right? So keep an eye on that. The other thing that you need to look to, if you want a more sensitive way of determining it, by sensitive, I mean not so laggy, like the M2 money supply, but something a little bit more sensitive. You can look at the USDT dominance, currently still range bound over here, right? So anytime it deviates the top side of the trading range, you're looking for long trades. This goes down, crypto goes up. When it deviates the bottom side over here, you're looking for short trades or profit taking. And basically what you're looking for is a deviation over here. You really need to see this deviate. It is possible on the 4-hour time frame that over the coming hours, you might just set in yet another lower high, right? So you can see over here, the structure is beginning to shift, right? You have highs over there, you have a low, you have a lower high, you have a lower low, which basically means you're looking for another lower high, and you want this level to start to fail and roll over. If this can start to roll over on the short term, that could lead to a deeper pullback. That deeper pullback may mean that the dip is over, right? And that becomes a bear trap scenario, shaking people out of their positions. And then maybe you break back in alignment with what the M2 money supply is showing, and you quickly start to move up towards that 130K region, right? So what does it mean for altcoins? Well, if you look at this is the crypto total market cap, excluding the top 10, which basically means it's looking on CoinMarketCap or CoinGecko at coin number 11 on the list, and all the way down for the rest of the other 2 million coins or however many are out there. And you can see the MACD over here is starting to rise, right? You can see the histogram is starting to move towards the upside. And if it crosses that 0 line, that's probably where you start to see the fireworks happen. So he says over here, the longest buildup in history to what may be the biggest altcoin season we've ever seen. It sounds like a swear word, right? Altcoin season is a swear word in the crypto space at the moment. But again, we're lining that up with, of course, USDT dominance breakdown. So if you do get that, if you get that USDT dominance breakdown and you start to move towards those low levels, the key target area that we have is the yearly open. And even better, if you break below the yearly open, it's going to be really, really good. Then we're looking at this total crypto market cap excluding the top 10. And then, of course, we have to look to the most obvious thing, which I just said. Remember, if Bitcoin does manage to hold sideways over here as per the June data, right? If we look over here, typically in June, Bitcoin doesn't put in huge returns, meaning that some of that money may just flow into the altcoin sector. What would that do? That would cause a drop in the Bitcoin dominance, right? And right now, if you look at Bitcoin dominance plus stable coins, well, this is essentially the area of interest, and it's similar to my chart. I just thought I'd give you a cleaner, different overview for today by using Polaris XBT's chart over here. But you can see the bearish divergence starting to form between the Bitcoin dominance and the RSI over there. And it's, of course, coming to the key order block area, right? So he's showing over here DCA into ETH and altcoins when it's at this level, aggressively start DCAing when it's at the current level that is that now around that 71 region. And if it makes it as high as 76, you go all into altcoins. I don't necessarily advocate that you do that, but I think that it's a good thing to watch for the deviation, because when you come all the way back to the top of a trading range, your expectation would be that price should start to reject, or the chart should start to reject over here. And if this does begin to roll over, then it's going to be looking good, right? That's where the fireworks come into play, and you should see some big upside moves. So again, in the very short term, we are still seeing a bit of a pullback, and I wouldn't want to jump on the opposite end of that trend just yet, right? Allow that pullback to play out, allow price to establish a bit of a floor and support, and allow the Bitcoin dominance to roll over, allow the USDT dominance to roll back over, and that becomes the opportunity to time your entries, right? So when you look at the liquidity, of course, there's a lot more liquidity right now stacked overhead. But again, you don't want to jump in necessarily too soon. So keep an eye on that. That's on the weekly. Let's also have a look at Ethereum's liquidity over here on Binance and see where that's situated on the weekly time frame. So weekly, a little bit flat over there, not showing too much. So we'll go on the 3-day and see over here more liquidity on the upside as well. So I think ETH might sweep the recent lows. We'll have a look at that chart in a little bit, but more liquidity is on the upside than the downside, right? Which suggesting that over the medium to higher time frame, you could still see that short squeeze towards the upside, right? So I'm waiting to see if Ethereum can drop towards these previous lows. You can see over here, you had a clear and obvious base of support over here, potential range low coming in around that $2,300 region. And then remember, one of the things that I outlined as a bit of a risk factor last week was when Bitcoin was coming down and its funding was going negative over here, the open interest dropped significantly. But when you looked at ETH, it was being a little bit more stubborn, right? You could see the open interest was still climbing, and so was the funding rate still climbing, right? So therefore, we said that maybe we need to be a little bit more cautious on this and get a bit more aggressive on an entry where you're waiting for that actual sustained period, multiple hours of negative funding, which would drop that open interest. So if you see a drop in the open interest and a flush in the open interest, funding rates come down and flip negative over there. That's what we're looking for. That probably coincides with a sweep of those lows, right? Now, I think that's a possibility. I think you could see ETH sweep as lows to 2,300. And then this is where you take a more systematic, smarter approach as opposed to simply just DCAing into ETH, at random times. You can get a little bit more precise. What is the reason for the precision? The precision means that you can control your risk a little bit better, right? So as opposed to, I'm not saying that this is a terrible strategy, but the thing is, this relies a little bit more on hopium, right? If you're DCAing into ETH and other altcoins at this level, how much drawdown are you willing to experience, right? You don't know. This thing could drop quite significantly. Whereas you use something like this, you have a little bit more of an objective approach, right? Sweep the lows. We know that every time you sweep those lows, if you can get back inside the trading range. So if you can sweep the low, deviate back inside, now you have something to work with, right? It becomes long over there where I've just ticked, stop loss underneath that wick over there, and then you can target back towards the range highs and possibly even beyond. That's a trade setup, right? Now you can work with something as opposed to just DCA. Okay, cool. So we've covered that over there. Let's have a look at the 4-hour time frame for Bitcoin compressing between the 50 and 200 EMA. That's the red and the blue over there, which does suggest that you're probably going to get a sizable move in the coming days and weeks, right? Same thing over here for ETH. ETH is really adding pressure to this trend line. I'm not even sure that we can call this an ascending triangle anymore. It's essentially almost broken, right? So what does a break of this mean? Because you're holding multiple candles below. Theoretically, you could be a little bit generous for the bulls and you can just pull this a little bit more. But this is the thing with trend lines. They can be very, very subjective, right? At the end of the day, I don't like the way it's grinding in between these. I think that there's still a possibility that this could drop further. And how much further, I just showed you on the other chart, right? Around that 2,300 region, you might see something like that, right? That compression may lead to a little bit of a fake out towards the downside, a reclaim. That becomes a beautiful long trade over here, break back into the trend, and then the target remains the same, 3,300 on ETH, which is the yearly open, right? That's still the same target. The reason you want to control your risk and maintain a cautious approach is because we deep into the cycle, right? These sell-offs can happen aggressively. You can see even a bull sell-off, right? A bullback, as Rand calls them, bullbacks, right? A bullback is where price pulls back so quickly, but it's still a bull market and you want to buy it. But that pullback could be as deep as 20 to 30%. And that's what you need to be careful of, right? Do you feel comfortable holding a position on ETH, let's say all the way back down to $2,000? Because that's possible. That can happen, right? That's what you need to be aware of. That would essentially be, a waterfall over here where you just basically, or Bart Simpson. If you look at Bart Simpson's face, I did drop this. There is Bart Simpson. I did drop this over here in the, of course, in Whale Room. I'll quickly pull it into view over here so you guys can see. I dropped this a couple of days ago. I said, that's what we need to be careful of. You could put in a Bart Simpson pattern on ETH if that ascending triangle keeps struggling, which is what's currently happening, right? We need to be really, 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 really careful that you don't get caught on the wrong side of that. And that's why you want to control your risk, right? By looking at a little bit more precise metrics. So ETH BTC, where's it at, right? Big move up over here. This is going to be a pretty key level as well for ETH BTC. I wouldn't blindly buy this. I wouldn't blindly just swap all my Bitcoin for ETH at this level. But I think that it's a worthwhile level to keep an eye on, right? Watch this level as price comes into 0.02351. If you simultaneously see this forming a little bit of support over here, maybe USDT dominance begins to roll over and deviate back into the range over here, that could ultimately cause a quicker move up in Ethereum because people are seeking more risk. They're looking for good opportunities and high prices. And then if this does hold true, well, then this becomes a great opportunity, right? Because if this holds true over here, what do you have? Well, you essentially have a bullish pennant, right? Price coming into here, and then you're expecting a breakout and a move much, much higher towards even 0.03, right? So that's the bullish plan of action. If that is going to play out or not, time remains, right? We have to wait to see. Okay, cool. So key levels, if you do put in the Bart Simpson pattern for ETH, you're looking down towards that $2,000 to $2,100 region. You're going to revisit almost this full candle, right? Big inefficiency candle over there. You're probably going to come back all the way for that. All right, what else? Let me know in the comments if there's anything else. What else you want to have a look at? We'll pull up a few things while I wait for your chart requests, and we'll look at Solana. We'll look at a couple of other things. While we wait for that, I do want to mention as well, guys, in the description below over here, remember you get the suite of crypto newsletters, right? Use the links in the description below. Sign up to each of those. There's amazing alpha over there. So you're getting a whole bunch of trades on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. It's not daily, but it's every weekday, right? Every weekday you're getting content and information, the most important things around the crypto markets. That is in both the daily candle and good morning crypto. So use the links in the description below. Sign up to those if you haven't already. And let's go into a couple of the other requests, right? So let's see. Let's have a look at, okay, Altcoin has been one of the top performers. So I guess we can pull that up and have a quick look at it. All right, Altcoin. So, I mean, it looks like it's going to sweep the yearly open as it currently stands. And that's the problem, right? Let's go on the weekly timeframes. A lot of these coins put in absolutely shocking, terrible weekly candles, right? Look at those weekly candles over here. Let's just clean up all of this mess over here. Beautiful moves up, strong weekly candle towards the downside. And that's the same thing with Bitcoin. And part of the reason why we said this was, remember, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 green candles in a row. We've never seen more than 8, right? I think 8 is the most that we've ever seen, which meant that it was almost inevitable that at some point you have to put in a bit of a pullback, right? It's a good thing, healthy thing. I said it last week as well. Even if you're a bull, getting a pullback is going to be good for you because it means that you can create enough momentum to push price up towards $130,000 as opposed to running out of steam, right? This is showing that you're running out of steam. You would have, if you hit 130K on this move over here, that would have been the biggest exit signal ever because you were absolutely going to run out of momentum. Pulling back now could reset the RSI to a point where maybe it even breaks this white line on the RSI trend line, right? And if you can break this RSI trend line over here, maybe that opens up much higher prices, but only time will tell, right? So these are the things you need to consider. Okay, so weeklies, big resets over there. Let's go back to where's our charts over here? We're on Altcoin over there, right? So quickly going back to Altcoin. Let's find that over there. Yeah, sweeping the yearly open is most likely going to happen, right? That means a bit more of a move down. Let's keep over there. If Bitcoin continues to pull back, it's not out of this world to expect 17% more downside over there on Altcoin. We can quickly review the dailies. So there's your daily. Yep, putting in a downtrend, right? So any bounce from here that sits in a low high, be careful on Altcoin. High highs and high lows is the name of game. And look at how long that held you in that trend, right? First high, first high low. How far did that take you? 351%. So you need to think about it in reverse, right? If you're setting a lower high over here, who knows how far down that takes you? Then maybe it goes all the way back down to range lows. That would be 84% down. Cool. Render, how's Render doing? Okay, also rolling over here a little bit. We have a very tight Monday range. Also, we'll update you on the Monday ranges tomorrow. Let's let the Monday range play out. Set the Monday range. Remember, we look for the deviation of either the high or the low to trigger our next trade opportunity. Let Monday play out, right, in terms of range opportunity. Render, similar to Altcoin, I think most coins are going to look like this, especially when you view it on the weekly. You know, it's created a new swing low. So any bounce up over here could set in a lower high, and that's where you need to remain very cautious, right? So again, looking at those weeklies, not good, right? Nice moves up, and then basically you just took out last week's low. That's showing a shift in the market over here. Alrighty, cool. Let's see Ondo. Let's go to the real world assets. Okay, Ondo over here. So Ondo on the weekly, key range low over here for Ondo is coming in around this 74-cent region. The weekly doesn't look as bad as many of the other coins. I also want to show you ETH's weekly, but daily you can see new swing low over here, right? So it's got a lot of work to do. What you want to do is you want to look on the dailies at any of these coins that have had a bit of a markdown. That's the area to reclaim. Okay, your little breakdown area over there, which for most coins, the breakdown started just after Thursday. So between Wednesday and Thursday candle, that's going to be the important zone to reclaim. You need to get back above that. Okay, look on ETH, right? Let's have a look at ETH's weekly. Doesn't look nearly as bad as some of these other coins, right? It could get ugly quick. You have to be careful. But as it currently stands, look at ETH compared to SOL. Look at that weekly candle, right? Big moves up over here, basically takes out that whole candle. Let's see SUI. Also, already starting the whole waterfall effect, right? The Bart-Simpson pattern, if you look on a daily time frame, already beginning to play that out. So, you know, these things can unwind very, very, very quickly. Don't be surprised if it does. If it does, it means almost a full retrace of this entire pump. Remember what they're saying is, right? Easy come, easy go. So easy come towards the upside. A lot of people jump onto this train very, very quickly. Time hasn't passed for too long where prices consolidated higher, which means that it's fresh in their mind that they had XYZ portfolio size. They made a little bit of profit. As soon as that begins to get threatened, they bail out, right? That's how the psychology works. That's what causes the move back down towards about 230, for example, on SUI. But if you do get that, I do think it will be another good opportunity, right? We're nowhere near any sort of an alt season. So if you see something like that, I do want to remind you, we're still waiting for this, right? We're waiting for the confirmed breakdown on Bitcoin dominance. We haven't got that yet. So there will be a lot of opportunities over there. Alternatively, you know, the bullish case for all of these coins is reclaim the breakdown level, right? If you can start to break back above the breakdown level, you can buy any high lows from that point onwards, and then you're back in trend. Okay. WorldCoin, I heard they have like a 2% unlock that's coming or something soon, but we can have a look at that. In today's times in crypto, it seems like these unlocks mostly work out to be bullish. So let's have a look. Let's see what, and I mean, the chart doesn't look too bad, right? It's already come down into the key area. Theoretically, this is exactly where your high low would be. So would they pump this into the unlock? I think it's very, very possible. So if they do pump it into the unlock, you know, of course, key resistance is coming up at about 151 cents. So maybe wait for the Monday range to play out over here on WorldCoin, and then maybe you'll get a bit of an opportunity on the hourly. You can see strong downtrend over here. Let the Monday range play out. If the Monday range is set, you know, you might have something better to work with. Maybe you create a bit of a bigger Monday range. So Monday high somewhere here, Monday low over here. And then you remember you're waiting for the sweep. If you sweep that, that becomes the long, which lines up with the high low on the daily, right? So there it is. Low, high, low, high, low. This one dangerously close to taking out those lows, but theoretically, that is still a high low in the making with high highs intact, right? Cool. All right. Let's have a look at TON. I know TON had a big week. My best guess is it's probably given up a lot of that, but let's see. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay, it did. It gave up a lot of that, right? It had a huge move up over here. Gave up much of that that move. This is your daily time frame. Really, I'll just view this as range bound. Here's your key range low. That's your range low for TON, which is so close to, right? Any dips here into 290 down to about 280 if you're bullish on TON. You want to see that level hold, and the trade setup remains the same as many of the coins, right? Look for the longs over there. Get your, based on, you know, whatever the mechanical level is over here, put your stop loss underneath, and you're trading that towards the yearly open. So you have a nice range trade setup over there. Okay, cool. Pepe, let's have a look at Pepe. Pepe, USDT. I would imagine that in a risk-off environment, this has probably come down a bit as well. Okay, but it's found support right here at the 50. So this one, you know, it's taken out those lows. Typically, you wouldn't want to take out that swing low, but you are finding some support, right? So if you start to reclaim this level, then you can call that a deviation, a break back into the trading range. The big level to reclaim, of course, is the breakdown, but you could probably already start to look for opportunities if this can get back inside. Similar to what I said with TON, personally, I'd just wait for the Monday range to develop and then look for the sweep of the Monday low, reclaim of Monday low, take the long trade and long it up to here about 1355. If it can get back above that, you can continue to hold that all the way to the yearly open. And as a percentage move from here to there, you know, 71% move, right? Pretty decent. Okay. Sonic. Sure. Let's have a look at Sonic. So Sonic is just not performing, right? This thing is getting absolutely crushed all the way back down to range lows. Yeah, look at that. I mean, you want that level to hold. If this level doesn't hold, this could go down a lot more. We should probably have a look at Phantom USDT, its old name, just for a bit more price history. What is going to be the best one to go to, though? That's the thing. Let's try this Poloniex one, right? Let's see if they still have, if it's, no, it's not trading. We'll need to look for another one. Let me try one more time. Phantom USD. Maybe, yeah, let's use this one. Crypto cap one. This one. Okay, there we go. We got some more price issue over here. So this one's still trading. This is 39660, and this one is trading at 3987. It's close enough, right? We have stuff to work with over here. So very, 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 very important range low level to be defended, right? You can see if you use the phantom chart, there's a bit more price issue over here, which does mean that this whole area over here down to about 33 cents is all support. Major, major, major support over there. If you start to lose that, this can easily go down to 17 cents. But I'm not here to shake you out of a position, right? At the end of the day, it is support. Okay. All right. Let's see. Guys, just checking if there's any different requests, and we'll have a look at that in a minute. Okay. 𝗬, a lot of requests for 𝗬. So we can have a look at 𝗬. Okay. Unless it's all the same person that just keeps spamming the chat, but we'll look at it anyway. Okay. 𝗬. So this one's already tagged the yearly open. Let's just get an overview on the weekly scale first. Just consolidating, chopping about. Let's see 3-day over here, and we'll go into daily. Yeah, I mean, 𝗬 is just chopping about, right? There's no real trend that's established over here. It's not a very clean chart in terms of levels to watch. Basically, if you can start to clear above 480 over here, take out those highs and consolidate and hold. So in other words, you want to see something like this. You want to see price hold this level, move up, reclaim, defend this and the yearly open, or probably test a couple of times into the yearly open. If you can deviate that, that will open up the trade to trade higher, right? Other than that, it's very hard to comment on this one. It's just chopping about. It's all over the place. You probably have a bit of a low time frame range that's going to establish, down to those lows, right? So you're probably going to range between about 366 and about 480, right? 366 and 480 over there. All righty. Cool. All right. Let's see. How long have we been going? We're 37 minutes in. We can take a couple more requests, guys. Remember, if you haven't already claimed your bonus over here on BTCC, use the link below. 10% deposit bonus, which is a really, really great offering. And that's real money, right? It's not one of these fictional deposits that expire. You can literally use that money, right? You can withdraw the 10K. Don't do that. I mean, don't screw to the exchange just for the bonus. But theoretically, that's how it works. Okay, cool. Let's go to a couple more. 𝗧𝗧. Let's have a look at 𝗧𝗧. Haven't looked at these for long. 𝗧𝗧, Rune, all of those. I think they got heavily hit. But we can check it out. How's 𝗧𝗧 looking? So, yeah, super bearish still. Look, it will take time to recover this, but right down all the way at the bottom, you have to think of this, right? If Bitcoin has done like a 7 or 8x since the lows, it's not really a great look when your coin is all the way back down at the bottom. This is why you want to avoid like religiousness over coins, right? You don't want to have like this cult-likeness and intense emotional ties to a coin. That is a key support. So we have seen big bounces off of those key supports. But yeah, it's not a good look when it's all the way down at the bottom over here. Is it establishing in the short term a possible reversal? Possibly, right? You had your low, you had a high low, you had a higher high, and could this be the next high low to send price up higher? Possibly, right? But I wouldn't get too excited until it starts to hold multiple candles above about $1. Okay, virtual. So AI agent platform. Let's quickly see what virtuals looks like. Where did virtual go? Let's just search that again. Okay, virtual. Here it is. Alrighty, this one got a nice move up. Alrighty, so yeah, it's holding up over here. It's probably going to range a little bit like some of the other coins are. Key range levels that I'd be focusing on pretty much around those lows. Hold the 50 EMA on the daily time frame, and you can maintain that uptrend, right? So possible high low in the making over here. Target would be the yearly open. It could be establishing a bit of a trend. But in the short term, it's probably going to chop about with Bitcoin. Okay, so there's your trading range between those two levels. Alrighty. Cool, guys. Smash the like button if you haven't already. I'm checking the chat if there is anything more. Smash the like button. It really helps us get the show content out. Let's see if this is changed in terms of your votes over here. More or less the same. The votes are more or less the same. So some of you think that 6 to 12 months from now you have alt season. Others think, basically you're saying over here, at least half the people don't even believe there'll be an alt season, which is nuts. This is often how it goes, by the way. Every cycle, it feels like there'll never be an alt season. Your trigger is the breakdown in Bitcoin dominance. Okay, that is your trigger. All right, I think that's about it, guys. I'll catch you all on the next one. I hope you have a great day. See you on the next one. Use the links in the description below if you want to support the channel, and I'll catch you later. Cheers for now.